Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to the Party Chat People's Podcast. Or should I say the Savi and
People,
Mikey show?
or you could say the People's Chat Party because your head went backwards, you goon. You didn't start from the party, you started from the people's and you did the pan.
Maybe I did that on purpose to mess with everyone.
The People's Chat Party.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
look at that, a new political party, the People's Chat Party.
Audio just did something very strange.
The People's Chat Party.
You sound like a robot.
I do?
Yeah, don't know why.
That's great. All right, let's keep with it. I didn't change it.
Okay.
Cool. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Party Chat People's
You're back
Podcast.
to normal. Hooray. Please continue.
As always, I'm joined by Zavi, and that's it. And we're here to talk about video game things. And two video game things in particular, Ghost of Tsushima
Ghost of
and
Tsushima.
Paper Mario the Origami King. So that's pretty much what we'll be focusing on today, just the two of us. And I think we're just ready to sort of get into it, right?
And we're wearing our plain white tees, taking it
Yes.
casual. Although you, of course, had to come out fly with the hat.
Oh, yeah. I mean, old ladies have been stopping me on the street going, oh my God.
Oh my God! You know what you were just reminding me of? One time I was in a bathroom to a movie theater, and I don't know what movie this gentleman had just seen, but he was standing there looking at himself in the mirror, and he was just saying over and over again something to the effect of like, "People just don't wear fly ass hats anymore. Like, a hat used to mean something." And I'm just like I wish I had the courage to go up to him and just be like, "You are correct."
Oh man, you should have. You
You
would
know
have
how
had
it is,
to.
random
Yeah,
bathroom interactions. He
yeah, yeah.
probably would have appreciated it, but I was just on my way.
Stop staring at my junk. No, yeah, but it was so interesting, and I was out with a friend later on. It was like, I love it when people look offended when they're complimenting you. It's such a special shot. Like when they go like this, when they go, "Oh my God, that looks so good on you," and you're like, I don't understand if you're actually happy or you're not, or it looks so good that your face is so scrunched up. But okay, this old lady stopped in the street, and she's like, I just have to say,
so
that hat is amazing, and I was like. Thank you. I
so
appreciate
so
it.
given that, I feel like the appropriate thing to jump into is how fashionable is your ghost?
Oh, my ghost, I think I enjoy the Ronin outfit most of all with the straw hat. I
The
think I've
straw
been
hat looks
done it,
dope.
or sometimes I'll just do one of the headbands, and the color schemes for the headbands are quite nice when you
Yep.
find them.
The
But
thing I like about the headbands in particular is like the ones that you get by writing a haiku. Like
oh
there's a
yeah,
connection to it.
yes,
That's great.
yes,
But
yeah,
we are talking about, assuming that you're cool with starting with that,
of course.
Ghost of Tsushima.
Ghost.
It's been out for a little while now, but I think we might have had a similar dynamic in terms of like blowing through that intro and those first batch of hours and being excited, but then like you get that open world creep coming in and you're like, you know what, I don't want to just blow through this game. At least that's what I've been what I had happen, right? And then I just started mainlining the story because I was like, you know what, I was having a little bit of like the the shiny penny problem of like, let me go hit this waypoint, let me go hit this POI, let me go upgrade this thing, let me go do this and that. And then I was just like, you know what, I'm interested in seeing where the story goes, period. So let me
Yeah,
go take the epic journey down south
I
to
might
do
have to
those
follow
quests.
your lead with
And
that
so I've
because
concluded act one, and I'm excited about the game again. That's where I'm at. How
yeah.
about you?
I definitely might have to follow your lead on that because I've definitely been getting on the like, open world creep and ooh, question mark here and the little the symbol for side quest here. And what I'm finding is that I think I want to start skipping side quests and if I run into fox dens and stuff because I have gotten the upgrades, so running into them naturally through the bird, your mother. the bird, you know, following you, leading you to where they are. But I think I'm really just enjoying the tales. So like so
The
you have
Mythic Tales.
Masako, yeah, Masako and Ishikawa. Well,
Oh, okay, yeah,
those
right,
just your,
right, yep.
your companion. So
Yeah, the Tales are great. Hmm.
Masako, Ishikawa,
And one thing that occurred to me actually is like this game has a very good taxonomy of like the different quests. So you have like the tales that you're talking about where they're like kind of character focused, they're telling a story. You get them in these nice, neat, digestible episodes basically.
mm,
And then you have like I don't remember what they call them, but they're essentially just like
the mythic,
side things.
side things.
Well, yeah, there's a mythic quest too, though. Then they
Yeah.
have a certain structure to them. They're
Yes.
more like mythological. They're more exploratory.
And there's always
Um,
really painterly sort of Japanese animated sort of intro to them, which like looks fantastic.
uh-huh.
Like, oh, you know, Ishikawa. I forgot his name, but like, oh, like Todayori. Like Todayori was like, you know, this famous guy, and his armor was special, and then you earn the armor or the bow of the other guy. I forgot his name. Is it Ishi? It's not
Uchi
Ishikawa.
something. It's Uchi
Yeah,
something.
Uchi. Yeah.
But here's something that's wild. I don't have the longbow yet. I've been watching Stacy play, and
Uh,
she has explosive arrows on the longbow, and I'm just like, I don't have that shit yet. I need to fix that.
you do.
But yeah, because it's like, and that's the thing. Part of what I think I mean when I say that there's a good taxonomy is that the rewards for certain classifications of quests
Mm,
are good and worth it, and that's pretty consistent. The mythic tales or quests or whatever the mythic tales I think they call them, like those are like pieces of equipment that
mm,
will change your tactical options, and
yeah.
then the tales are largely just about like the story and the characters and learning like that whole thing. And you might be interested in Sensei Ishikawa, and I might be more interested in Lady Misako, and like you can
Yeah.
pursue it to your heart's content. Like
Yeah.
that part of it is good. The thing that I think is still a bit stuck in like the pinnings of an open world game is they feel like they have to fill the map, and that leads to a certain amount of like of that frustration that I felt, which I resolved by just mainlining stuff and just going fuck it. Which the game I think is actually pretty good at. Like, it's designed to make it pretty trivial for you to forget all that shit, versus like the disaster of Skyrim of just like having the quest log of a billion
Well,
things
that's the
that
thing.
feels
This game doesn't
overwhelming.
give you a
And
quest log. You kind of have to do one thing at a time. So I
yes,
realized that the other day. I was like, wait a second. Like if I'm trying to do something else, it's like, no, you have to do one thing at a time. Like even when it comes to side things, I was like, okay, that's actually kind of not common. Usually, you usually have your side quest, and then you have like the yellow marker mixed with the white marker, and on my way to do this, I'm gonna do this, and it's just kind of like no, you kind of have to be intentional about what you want to do at the moment.
which I think is like healthier.
Yeah, because I think when you're doing the like the white side quests, they're never that long where you're just like, oh my God, where I can think of like a GTA mission and go like, imagine if in GTA they'd be like, you can only do one thing at like, one thing at a time, and then you have to go back and do all these side quests again. It's like nothing ever, aside from the tales, which are a little bit longer, nothing ever keeps you, and of course the main Jin's journey, nothing ever keeps you occupied that long that you're just like,
Yeah,
oh
and
my God.
it feels like part of what I really enjoy about this version of an open world, particularly once I made that switch to mainline it because I was like, I know where my interest lies and
Yeah.
I'm gonna own my experience, is that it's it's very like I said again, like that word really flared up for me a lot, was just like this taxonomy is really smart, it's really good, because it's dependable, right? You
Mm,
know what you're signing up for. And if I jump into that game tomorrow after a hard day's work and I just want to chill, I could actually just roam the countryside and fight randos,
mm,
and like that's available to me. The rewards are paltry, but I don't care about the rewards because I'm tired and I want to just chill
yeah,
and be a fucking
yeah,
samurai and take cool
yeah,
pictures, right?
yeah.
But then, if I have a solid 3 hours and I'm hyped, let me go do some story stuff.
hmm Funny you kind of are segueing a bit without segueing. Um, One big disappointment that was sort of revealed to me is I am not really enthralled with the combat as I was initially, and I'm finding that it's really not as deep as I thought it was going to be. the
Hmm.
stance change is really just a
I've
glorified polarity change.
I've gotta push you to get to Act Two because
I'm in Act
they.
2.
Oh, okay, okay, okay,
I'm in
cool.
Act 2.
Uh,
I don't feel as if I'm using different tactics. I'm just switching to the stance to do an armor break to armor break them and then switching back. It's
that's
the glorified polarity change. There's nothing unique. And although you can use different stances with other people, you're just gonna have a harder time doing it. Like I said,
that's
just
fair. Are
it,
you playing on normal?
I believe I'm playing on hard.
Okay.
Hard.
Uh, I mean,
Yeah, I'm
honestly,
playing on
like
hard. I'm playing on hard.
you are like very comfortable with, like Dark Souls and Sekiro. You might want to try lethal. Like, I don't know if you have.
I heard it came out. Can you change in
You
mid
can
game?
change back and forth as much as you want.
Okay.
No big
Oh
deal.
yeah, the thing that between you and Stacy, and like, how come this game is hard today? How come it's
Yeah,
easy today? How come
yeah,
it's hard today?
exactly. That was
Um,
so
the thing
funny.
is that I don't want to give myself a frustrating time with this because I already
Of course. It's
have.
just it's something you can freely try. My experience on hard and something that I like about the game is that it is forcing me to use every tool.
Hmm.
So I agree with you that the stance change is not like some ridiculously deep thing because you choose who you want to focus on, you switch to that stance, and then you beat their ass.
Yeah,
But when it comes to dealing with five people at once, you better use those kunai and those other tactics, right? When it comes to
yeah,
fighting eight people, the difference that an ally makes is huge
yeah.
and
No, I agree
also
with
like
you, but
forces you to sometimes just
yeah,
tactically retreat. And I'm okay with like having that whole breadth of options. Where I run into problems is that not so much that like the stances aren't particularly deep, which I agree with, but
yeah,
the game does force you to blend your playstyle according to the situation
yeah,
between fighting and stealth. And the stealth is overpowered because it isn't deep, which is a problem with a lot of games and how they use stealth.
yeah, yeah. I okay. It's good I let you finish because I just said I wanted to say that although I see where you're coming from, the stance introducing and the weight that they have on this part of the combat is a little bit too much for me to sort of just hand wave it away and just say like, well, yeah, there's other options. It's like, no, this is a main part of your combat. There are freaking cutscenes when you unlock something. There's a whole rigmarole when you earn something. There's a whole design gameplay system where you have to observe and kill leaders to earn new stances
Yeah, yeah.
and upgrade it. So I just feel like, there wasn't a lot of thought put into it. And then all of the successive sort of skills are just like the same thing, but their version, like, oh, do this for like a stronger version. Oh, do this to like
Yeah, I hear
armor,
you.
do this to stagger
But
more. And it's
but I
just
do think I do think that that's the perspective coming from someone who's like, high tier action gameplay. Like I'm with you there, I get it. I like to make the joke that like Devil May Cry, the first one, like
yeah,
ruined other action games for me because they became trivial by comparison.
yeah,
And I actually think that this game is actually this really interesting, like it's skillful on the harder difficulties, but it's also pretty freaking accessible.
mm,
Hello, and and basically like I went to my cousin's place, I showed him the game, and I was playing on hard, and he was just like, oh, this seems cool, let me show you, and I just gave him the controller, and when he came up against a shield guy, I tried to tell him to do a stance switch, and like he did it because I told him to, but afterwards, like he didn't do it again. You know what I mean? He didn't like
yeah,
that didn't click for him.
yeah,
And if he had gone through the tutorial, maybe it would have. But
yeah,
like, it's not the trivial like. It's trivial for us, basically, right? Like I played Devil May Cry 3 where you're switching between style. No, sorry, 4. 3 you have to pick one, but in 4 you're like switching between styles of Dante, and it's absurd and it's completely unnecessary.
yeah,
But like I'm used to that kind of thing, and I think you are too. I
yeah,
I do think that like this game scales pretty well, even
yeah,
though it doesn't have granular difficulty the way that like Last of Us, which
yeah.
was the last big release, does. It still scales pretty well.
Yeah, I guess I want to clarify is that I don't think that we are particularly special just because we're more, seasoned gamers. I just think that it wasn't thought out well in the sense of just like, the polarity shift of like is that
You wanted it to
There
mean
isn't
more. You didn't
yeah,
want it to
there
be so
isn't like
simple.
when I am the what is it, the moon stance where I'm good against shields.
Brutes.
Why aren't I changing my stance to sort of like have maybe something more defense oriented? Like I said, it's just this is the thing to stagger more. Then
Yeah, it really
there
only
isn't a
affects your
change.
heavy
You don't,
attack.
yeah, there's no change in the gameplay. There
Hmm.
isn't like, okay, when I'm a spear, I have to be more mobile. The spear says I have to be more
I
mobile.
see what you
It's
mean. Yeah.
literally just this is the thing that's strong against this thing.
Right. You
We're
want the
straight to
stances.
that
And you
one.
know what's interesting is that like there are ways in which stances almost have more importance to enemies like when you're dueling them,
Yeah, yeah,
because when you see someone like sheath their sword, like you are having this thing where you're like, okay, I have to think about how to counter that. But in terms of like what your options are, you don't have so much to
yeah.
actually
You
play
don't.
with.
You don't. You
Like
have
if think about like playing Mitsurugi in like Soul Calibur, right? He's all
mhm.
about these different stances, but this game doesn't approach that.
No, and then also different play styles associated with those stances. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like your play style doesn't change. The only thing that changes your play styles are the ninja tools.
I think
That's
that's almost true. Like Stacy dodges like crazy, and like I
but
don't,
that's not
but
representative
they're
of different stances. That's just her
right.
play style.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's true. That's what I was going to get to is
yeah,
like there are different play styles for the combat generally, but the
yeah.
stances don't inform them.
I'm remembering, oh my God, the game that we were playing together, and I watched you and I was like, oh my God, this boss battle took me an hour and you beat it
Which
in
one?
10 minutes. We were playing a game. I forgot what game we were playing. It was a big game that all came out and we were playing it on the couch and was a little bit ahead of you and I watched you beat the same boss battle that I was beating.
This
Oh,
rings a
Control.
bell.
Control.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and like I was like, what? I was fighting this shit for an hour, and it was just like, wow, our play styles are just
So
very different.
different.
Like probably holistically, like if dodge and shield are available, like you probably align yourself more with like a shielding and me am dodging. So it's probably the other way around.
Ah.
But it was just like,
Huh.
oh my God, I don't play this game that way. But watching you play just throughout the level and then getting to a boss battle, I was like, no wonder this was more difficult for you and this was more
Mm.
difficult for me. You can kind of tell.
Yeah, Control
Yeah,
is a game where like your shielding options are really about buying you like an additional second, not
yeah,
like not like tanking anything, you
yeah,
know? You can't
yeah.
tank shit in that game.
Small side segue on not segue, side note. Um
Tangent.
I forgot the Control DLC is coming out. I completely
Oh,
forgot
word.
because of coronavirus. They had that little trailer, I think, on the PlayStation thing. I was like, holy shit. I was like, yeah, the Alan Wake thing is coming out. So that's gonna be a fun little thing to jump
Nice.
into.
Yes. Look forward to hearing that. That sounds cool.
But yeah, so back to Ghost. Yeah, I am enjoying where the story is going so far. I did like at the end of Act One, your uncle is starting to he's just like, I know you came to save me, but how exactly did you do that? Uh,
Yeah, that's definitely gonna come to a head, and I look forward to that.
yeah, yeah,
Um, I like that, like a lesser a lesser narrative would have like drawn out the rescue of your uncle for like 10
yeah.
more hours.
Yeah, I'm actually quite surprised and glad that that was wrapped up as quickly as it was because you look at Act One as like save Lord Shimura and you're just thinking, oh my God, this is gonna be anime one-on-one where you go there and it's like, oh
Uh,
no, that's not him. Or Kubla Khan has him in a bag and he jumps on his ship and
oh,
they,
this is
they
the Jack
princess.
Bauer 24 problem. It's well
Yeah,
known. Like
yes,
it's this style of writing that 24, like if it didn't create it, because that's usually not the case,
it
like
definitely
it
popularized
pioneered,
it.
yeah, it pioneered
Yeah,
where it's just like the you just keep the carrot like just keeps
yeah.
moving,
And
and it works for basic drama in terms of just being
yeah.
like, okay, we got to keep the story going,
Yeah,
so just
but
push it out a
like
bit
you,
further.
I was definitely relieved where there was like, oh,
Thank
you like
goodness. Yeah.
saved him and you're back with him, and this is going to play against the dynamic of you meeting Yuna and
Hmm.
him sort of reflecting and having respect to say like, oh my God, I'm this privileged samurai. Like I don't have the, she doesn't have the privilege to follow some code.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's very clear. And it's just like, all right, well, I had to learn real quick, like, okay, I can either sit here and let my culture be destroyed, or I can do what I need to do to save it and think about all that other shit later.
And I think that that's where Jin and his uncle will come to a head. I don't know exactly how it'll play out. I hope that it remains unpredictable. I hope that it
Yeah.
like keeps us on our toes because it's a great dynamic to be flirting with in Act Two, and I look forward to
Yeah.
playing it more and figuring it out. I will say, not to cut you off, that I do want to like discuss the economy a little bit of this game,
Ugh,
a little bit further.
to me.
It's actually another example of what I mean by like paint by numbers open world. And the good thing is that I think the people at Sucker Punch were wise enough to recognize that it's not the focus of their game and it
Hmm.
doesn't feel like the focus of their game, but it's
Yeah.
still there
Yeah.
and it's still mostly distracting
Yeah.
because the progression that you get is significant, but it's not like any huge game changing type of thing. And the structure of an open world where you're like, you have the shiny penny of there's some bamboo or there's some this or there's some that. It, I'm just someone who like has to fight against a kind of completionist tendency, or that's not right. Like it's really OCD. I don't really care about getting 100% of games, but I see the shiny penny and I want to go run and pick it up. And it disrupts things. You're in the middle of a mission, you're talking to someone, you're following them on a road. I'm in character, I'm immersed in a world, and then there's a bamboo thing that I want to go run 30 feet out of the way. And it's not serving anything. Like, you know, I have to contrast it to Horizon Zero Dawn, where that never felt like it was the case. I don't think. Like there were shiny pennies, but the reason that it was sort of important in that game was that you could run out of ammo. You could actually run out of ammo in Horizon. You could run out of materials to craft ammo. And so those choices to get that stuff felt meaningful in that moment when you finish a fight and you were almost out of ammo and you're just like, oh my God, now I need to like go get everything again, which actually serves a pacing purpose, right? In this game, no, none of that. And that's okay. It's not a huge demerit on the game because it's not the focus, but it is there. And I kind of want to see someone have the courage to do some kind of like open world game and find some alternative, find something that doesn't have this shallow economy just kind of there following the
I
paint by
feel like that game
numbers.
exists. We just can't remember it right now because I'm definitely trying to think of like open world games where the level up system felt intentional.
Mm.
Smaller, yes, smaller in scale and smaller in what you had to do, but it was realized in a very intentional way. And it's just like, okay, it's coming back to me. It's funny because you talk about Horizon so damn much. Like that wasn't an intentional economy. Like you looked for specific things, like, oh my God, I need that pelt, I just need that one thing, and you would go out and you would get it, but I just can't remember it right now. But that probably is the most recent example of like, I am intentionally going to hunt for this so I can get this one thing to upgrade this
I
armor.
mean, I know you love Monster Hunter, and that has that.
Monster Hunter is different. There's no
It's
one.
not open world,
Yeah,
right?
it's not open world. You go on missions, you get what you need, and then you go about your business. But I'm trying to think of it of an open world where it was like, you know what? I think I am not mistaken. Brutal Legend.
Huh.
I think I distinctly remember Brutal Legend being really intentional about going to specific areas, getting like one thing or two things to get this one like thing to upgrade your thing to
I was thinking of going
answer.
back to that anyway because we've got Jack Black coming to Psychonauts 2. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
and so I was like, I feel like something in my head clicked and just went like, how much you want to bet Brutal Legend is one of those games that was like underrated, and if I went back to it, it'll hold up better than most of the games that were considered masterpieces in that era. You know what I mean? Like that
Mhm.
happens occasionally. Like
Yeah.
that was that kind of feeling I had where I was like, I should go
I
back.
don't know if Brutal Legend's gonna hold up.
It's not going to be a masterpiece. I know that, but
I distinctly remember Brutal Legend because it was when I had really nothing going on at the time in life. So I spent tons and times of it, but it was because I had nothing going on that I could invest that much like time in it and like
mm,
almost 100% completionism of Brutal Legend. So I played that game to the ground. If there's ever
Mhm.
a re-release, I don't think I could jump on that bandwagon because I successfully exhausted,
Yeah, that's fair.
my legend. But yeah,
Cool.
as far as my thoughts on the economy, just to wrap up, um, I think, like I said before, I don't mind it so much because there are things you need to collect. The only part about the economy is the random supplies. Like, oh, you need 400 supplies, and then you're just running around clicking R2, R2, and it's like, fine, the pieces of bamboo, the predator pelts, the flowers, that I understand that part. But then when the random supplies, it's just like it could have been anything. It could have been Rio. It could have been this. It could have been whatever. And it's just like, I
I think that was an attempt to be like historically accurate, but still have their cake and eat it too in terms of like having a traditional traders
but in
like
the
video
sense,
game
you're
economy.
saving your land, and there's people, their investment to, I know I'm going above video game logic, but in the sense of like, oh, Lord Sakai, you're saving our land. I don't need supplies from you. Just give me what I need and I'll make it for you because it's in my best interest for you to save our fucking island.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know
that's
what
what
I
I
mean?
mean. No, but that's what
So
I mean. Like that's well, that's not exactly what I meant, but like that fits with what I'm saying. Like it fits this problem of doing the paint by numbers thing where it's just like we need an economy. How else do you do progression in video games? You need to have an economy with
but what I'm saying,
trading and all
Alex,
that.
they
Like
had it. You still had requirements. The only thing that's and then there
well,
are
we talked about this last
situations.
time that like, although I don't think we recorded it, like you could have done this by aping the system or the abstraction from State of Decay, which is that you do things for people and then you accrue
Yes, you're
influence
right. Yeah,
and
yeah.
then you leverage that influence
Mm,
for their services to improve your blade or
there we
whatever and
go.
so
Yeah,
on.
that's right.
That
We
would have felt
talked about.
far more thematic,
Yeah,
far more appropriate.
you still have the you knew I need the predator pelt. I need that physical things to do it. But if I don't trust they're gonna save our island with the influence, then
Yeah.
I'm not doing this shit for you.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
supplies thing is a little lazy. It's just to make the economy more liquid, which arguably is a problem sometimes because
Yeah.
like you just harvest so much of one thing and then you can sell at the trapper to get supplies to cover because most of the time what you need is supplies if you like me are OCD as hell like you have a billion bamboo so like supplies is always the choke point it's
Yeah.
always the
Yeah.
bottleneck but
Yeah.
it could have been something else it could have literally been swap out the abstraction and instead of picking up supplies off of the dead bodies of Mongols, you actually just earn influence as people hear about your great deeds.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. True. True. Cool.
The only thing that wouldn't have gelled with is like generally the peasants talk about like Lord Sakai like he's the shit and they all like venerate him. If you actually needed influence to like get any of this stuff, the dialogue would have to change so that it would be more like, hey man, I can't work for free. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I'm tepid with the game at the moment. I'm kind of, maybe about 3 or 4 days a week. I'll give it about 2 hours, and then I'm just like, all right, I think I'm done. But I think I'm definitely gonna shift to how you're playing the game and just focus on the tails and mainline and kind of forget everything else. As far as skill levels go, I don't need this constant like power creep. Like I think I'm dealing with what I am and like, not, oh my God, like I'm dying. This is so hard.
Exactly.
I think I'm just
That's
gonna
part of
stick.
how I treat progression in games. Like I've played games where I actively do not try to upgrade my stuff because it's not challenging enough and I want to like feel challenged throughout my playthrough, you know?
Mhm.
So in a sense, like same thing here, kind of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It just kind of
Just
feels like busy
do what
work.
you're interested in,
Yeah,
you know?
it feels like busy work to me right now, and the story is interesting, and I don't want the busy work of the game to sort of flood
Fuck
my
that up.
feelings on what that's doing. So I'm gonna shift. It's so funny. I've been listening to other, just listening to podcasts and seeing how I was listening to like how other people receive the game, and I'm like, oh, okay, whatever, and ignoring it and playing the game and sort of coming to the same points and just being like, great opening,
Such a
soggy
good opening.
middle,
Mm.
and then you finish act one and then you're kind of like, ooh, I'm there again. And then everyone is just like, I think I really just want to focus on the story. I don't want to fall for the slog again. Like you warned me what your just like you've
Yeah,
shown me what your design game loop is.
right.
Now after Act One, it's my decision.
Yeah,
Do I want to do the design loop again, or do I
right.
just focus and
And you
mainline?
know what's interesting is I had a similar journey with Horizon. The first time that I beat Horizon, I was not actually as in love with the game as I was like a year later,
Yeah.
because when the expansion came out, I went back into it and it was like a much more focused area, focused experience, focused story. You stay in this one area for all this time. And I was just like, this is so fucking good. And then I went back and I replayed the whole goddamn game again, like already having the appreciation for the story and everything. And I did everything because I was so hungry for more. And then I fell in love with the game because I realized that when you push the difficulty to the max, like you have to engage with the economy. And I was just like, holy crap, this holds up after so many playthroughs. I'm probably going to buy the goddamn game on PC. And like,
I'm surprised
uh,
you have it already.
I haven't done it yet because I have a rule that I only buy a game if I'm going to play it then and there.
Yeah.
But what do you call it? I'm excited to do it, and maybe this game can have a similar kind of journey. I don't know, because the story's good, the characters are good, and I can see myself still wanting to mainline the story, but then reaching a point where it's like, okay, but I want to see the finale of what happens with the fucking the sake guy, the guy who drinks all the time. Um, I
Uh,
forgot his name,
yeah, me too.
but some of those side characters that maybe didn't grab me enough to like do all of their shit, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we'll see.
Cool. Well, speaking of games that we only buy when we play them. Wait, what did you say? You
I only
will
buy a game if I'm
buy
going
when
to
you
play
play
it then and
them.
there.
I finally, after owning the game for about a week, I finally cracked open Paper Mario and the Origami King. And as we spoke before, I am reminded of the varying styles of Nintendo's sort of game design and how
Yeah,
they go from I'm 2 years old to I'm, a 40-year-old man.
you got to be
I'm not a
careful with
40-year-old
that
man,
stuff.
but I'm just saying. But yeah, so the origami. So to be honest with you, this is actually my first foray into the Paper Mario world. I've played the Mario and
Mm,
Luigi RPGs, which
Superstar
is
Saga.
similar. I hear similar, but it's not Paper Mario. And like Paper
Mario
Mario.
and Luigi is a more sophisticated RPG,
Yeah,
almost certainly.
yeah, and Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door is like legendary, and I actually haven't played that,
It's great.
but
It deserves a remaster.
yeah, and I know, from what I hear from people, the writing is very good. The combat, not like, revolutionary, it's still like fun and engaging and like clever in certain ways. So, opening up this game and, sort of peering around just slight, just like early impressions. You're like, yeah, yeah, it's good. Like, Thousand Year Door still is, number one, but this is like solidly the second when you compare it to all the rest that have come. And
Is
from my
that what you've heard from people?
yeah, and from my
Uh,
understanding, Color Splash, Sticker Star, and maybe there's one I'm missing out. Those never reached the highs of like
I would
Paper
go to
Mario.
the original. Well, I don't think Thousand Year Door was the original Paper Mario.
No, there was Paper Mario on the N64.
Right. Okay. That
And
one's probably, I think,
and then
better than what I've seen so far from this.
oh, really?
That's what I'd say. I mean,
Okay.
memory is a finicky
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
but
yeah. I mean, the again, like as I started off this conversation, I'm not necessarily high on this game at this point. I definitely need to give it more time. I've only gone through like the first world so far, but I'm getting sort of the game flow of the game, and I do understand that Nintendo has to tutorialize a bunch of things, but
it's unfortunate, really. Like you were talking about the need that they arguably have to broaden that appeal and allow other people to get it. I think, especially coming off of all things, Etrian Odyssey, where, like I said, it has the distinct honor of being a game that I turned up to the hardest difficulty to start with, and it was immediately very fun and very deep and very interesting. Um, my patience for this kind of shit is thin, and I basically put the game down going into the second world because I realized that I just
Oh, wow.
don't care about what is happening at
Yeah,
all. And I'm just not going to pick it up again unless I feel pulled to it. Like if I feel like playing something kind of like a, fairly mindless, grindy, let me go explore and find toads and do all that stuff, maybe I'll go back to it. But like from that initial clearing the first world and stuff, I was just like, I don't,
yeah.
I'm not pulled to it. I'm just not.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. I understand, like, even in the initial introduction of the main villain, the Origami King, it's not a strong villain. It's
Although
not a,
I did actually like the tone
the
of
tone is
that
cool.
intro.
Yeah, the tone is cool, but he himself, I just felt like I'm just gonna turn everything into origami because I can. Bye. And it's just like,
Well, it's childish. It's childish.
yeah,
It's,
yeah, but maybe that is sort of the reasoning for, our similar feelings. Like it's a childish sort of way to start a game. It's sort of a childish motif. Like you can do a sort of a whimsical or something with a childlike, essence in their story, but if it still feels mature, I think that's something that'll still pull you
and I
in.
think what's missing from this game that was in both the original Paper Mario and Thousand Year Door is that pretty quickly you start meeting side characters who are fun and interesting,
Yeah.
and that has not been the case for this game so far.
I see. Yeah, I mean, I did see Luigi and I thought he was gonna tag along, but he goes and does his own thing. I do know there is a side character system though. You get like companions throughout the game. I guess we haven't run any into any anymore, but I know that that interface still happens.
And I
I
don't even particularly care about them involving in the gameplay. I'm saying like part of what I think pulled me through those games that I mentioned, the early ones in the franchise, was that like the characters you met were really cool. Like the first Paper Mario, the first like companion guy that you get is like a Goomba, and like I was just like, but Goombas are bad guys, and like that's part of what they play with
yeah,
in the whole dynamic.
yeah.
I know that I have just met like the Babam character, and maybe he'll get interesting if I actually just put another hour into it. But I, like I said, I was on this downward trajectory of interest, and I didn't feel like fighting it. So hopefully that picks back up.
Yeah, yeah, I'm definitely going to stick with it because I think every few months I realize that I neglect my Switch, so I'm really going to try and invest some time in it. No, because I have a couple of things I really wanted to get into Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I need to. I'm like I'm done with work next week. I'm going to have 3 weeks to sort of just, do whatever. I think I want to really
Mm,
dedicate to like, some Switch time. So I'm gonna, invest in Origami King. I'm going to invest in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. But
Fantasy Strike,
huh?
Fantasy Strike.
Fantasy Strike, yes, Fantasy Strike. I'm gonna get on this week, I promise. But I do find it just a little disappointing that this game isn't pulling me in the way that I thought a Mario game would. But then I
Yeah,
was thinking
I'll
of
be upfront and say
Nintendo.
like if this thing was a Steam game, I'd try to get a refund, like straight up. Like, they have a lenient-ish policy on Steam. I know that I crossed the 2 hour mark, but what I mean by that is like um, probably like around the 2 hour mark of this game, I probably would have been like, no, this is too childish. I don't want this. Give me my $60 back.
Yeah, yeah. What I will say is that I started off the conversation of like, just realizing there's like these two sides of Nintendo, and this being sort of like an old Nintendo game where, the audience is sort of very clear, the design sensibilities are very clear. And I distinctly remember, I think it was like the time of the Wii when Nintendo very much expanded their audience. And I know a lot of gamers, like probably me and you, just felt like, Nintendo doesn't seem like it's for us anymore. And
Right.
and and this is not like a gamer elitist thing. It's purely
No,
on the
yeah,
fact
it's
like,
just, they were chasing that demographic,
yeah, like
which
literally,
was a
like,
huge,
yeah,
let's be clear, a huge like
win for
good
that.
thing
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the
yeah,
gaming industry that they pulled in a lot of people that either had never or it'd been forever since they'd been into
yeah,
games. But yeah, I feel you. Like
yeah.
they were focusing on that.
Yeah, and there was a definite, I don't want to say dumbing down, but a definite sort of
There's a shift in priorities.
I like, yeah, a shift in priorities, like with gameplay, with design, and like, you would play games and it's like, this is very simplistic. I can see how I can get my sister to play or my cousin or my brother. But
Right.
at a certain point, I need something a little bit more challenging because
Yeah.
I had grown up with you and you had built these skills within me. And now all of a sudden it's like, all right, everybody, well, we're going to go back to zero so like everybody
Hmm.
else can come and we can bring them all up. And it's just like, that's fine, but don't,
And
as a company, don't do that with all of your
And
IPs.
what's interesting is like I'd be super curious, just almost like academically, right? Like how this game does with kids, because RPGs are complicated things, and this game is at least starting from the starting point of like you better know how to read. Although like nowadays parents play games with their kids, so maybe less so. I could like maybe the parent reads and the kid tries to figure out the spatial puzzles, because like that might be really hard for kids. What I consider to be a very simplistic spatial puzzle might actually be easier for a kid than the classic Paper Mario stuff in terms
Mhm.
of just like mash A and I'm strong enough, so I'm going to
Can I
kill
give you
it.
a quick anecdote? Well, it's so funny. I don't think I ever told you this, but like I have a cousin and she has a son who's like 11 and he has a 3DS. He plays Zelda. So I don't think his mother cares about games, here or there. She just doesn't want him to be like addicted or play too much to it. But I asked him out about Zelda and he was just like, "Oh yeah, I really like Zelda because it lets me practice my reading." This is from a kid, and he's just like, yeah, like, and my mom doesn't bother to me too much because she hears me like reading, and I was like, that is such a strange thing for a kid to say. I don't
Dude,
know how much of it came from his mom or just him, because he was one of those kids that would literally sit there and read out all of the subtitles in Zelda and everything, and he deliberately intentionally said, yeah, I get to practice my reading, and I was just like,
right.
huh,
Yeah,
okay,
and it's because he's actually actively interested in
in what he's
knowing the
reading,
world
yeah,
and
exactly,
knowing this and understanding how to play this game at minimum, if not
yeah,
actually like what is the world, what is the story.
yeah.
And so yeah, he's interested in reading it. I mean, I remember my favorite story on that you reminding me of is like I learned the word simultaneously from the GoldenEye player's manual and used it as a sentence in school, and my teacher was like, you didn't write this, and I was like, yes I did. And it was like, what does it mean? And it was like, it's at the same time. And she was like, okay, that's an SAT word. And I was just like, all right, I learned it from a video game. And
What did she say then? I don't believe you.
probably, I don't know. Like it was second grade. That teacher was
Uh,
kind of mean, but um, but uh, but yeah, like I'd be interested to see how this game works for kids, because the things that don't work for me, I can understand working for that demographic, and
yeah,
that's okay. I
yeah,
just wish that I didn't pay
yeah.
$60.
But again, to what I'm saying of like a tale of new Nintendos in the sense of like, how is it that they make games that can appeal to all,
Right.
can appeal to a more mature crowd, and then that can exclusively appeal to kids and sort of turn a lot of adults off. And
Right. Like Mario still holds up. Like and probably
because
works
the
for
focus isn't the
adults.
story. I mean,
No, no, I know, I get that, I
yeah.
get that. But like I'm saying, like classic Mario, like still has like like a skill ceiling that is actually interesting still to this day, not merely on the grounds of nostalgia for an
Mm-hmm.
adult to try to like figure out how to play that game. And RPGs are harder, I
Mm-hmm.
think, to walk that line. Like you need to basically be simultaneously Nintendo and Pixar,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That's not fucking easy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Being Pixar is not fucking easy. Easy at all. Yeah, so I'm gonna stick to it. I'm gonna give it another college try. Um, I am because I definitely just want to have a more informed opinion about Paper
Mm,
Mario given its reputation. And although, I can always go back and play all these other games, sort of, you have
mhm.
to get it or emulation, whatever. I still, I have the game now. I can play it. I can see sort of like what is this series about? What's so endearing about it? Why is it popular?
Yeah,
Have a better opinion about like, okay, now I know what to expect from, the RPG house of Nintendo. I don't know if I necessarily call Xenoblade Chronicles Nintendo because it was Monolith Soft, and that extends back to Xenosaga and Xenogears. This is
yeah,
a wholly internal Nintendo developed like RPG system where
It's Mario.
yeah, they do things differently. I mean, speaking about that, before we even move on, like the battle system too, and they're speaking of economies,
So
like the
weird.
coin economies, and like
It's so
it's so
weird.
strange.
And
Just
I think again, I could see it as like something that's informed as how to like target kids. Like kids, for a kid, it might be actually really interesting and informative and fun to have thousands and thousands of coins and think you're rich, but then start hitting up against some puzzles that you can't figure out, and suddenly you just use thousands of coins in a single battle, but you only got 300, and like that might be good. But as an adult, I'm just like, this is fucking weird.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, definitely. Um, so the battle system, I I don't know how else they can expand that. And I don't
Mm,
know if the expansion of that is going to be interesting because
mm.
when it started, I was just like, mm, I wasn't compelled. Like just the base of it, I'm not compelled.
My
How you feel about
my trouble with it is that I think like which is actually interesting and makes me want to at least play a little bit more of the game. This game, like the spatial reasoning involved for these so-called puzzle fights,
it?
is it's weird because I fall like my experience is basically night and day. I either see it and I do it immediately and it's kind of boring, or I don't see it and it drives me crazy.
Mm, mm. I can see that. And then the economy around that is using coins to extend your time to figure out the puzzle.
Yes. Which
I
like in an actually safe way that doesn't involve real world money is sort of like Candy Crush.
You're not wrong. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Yeah,
Yep.
that kind of change. You kind of blown my mind for a second.
Ah.
I don't know if I want to play this game anymore.
I
Now that
mean,
you've
look,
compared it to Candy Crush.
Nintendo's really good. And I guess in some sense it's like the classic Japanese thing, even going back to like what they did with Japanese cars. Like they're very good at just paying attention to everything that everyone's doing and
Hmm.
like synthesizing into something that like works for them. So I wouldn't be surprised if like this design is actually directly from people who are following that sort of dynamic in the mobile space, and because you got to remember that Nintendo dipped their toes and whatnot, so that information, that
And
knowledge
dipped
is going to
out.
spread around.
And dipped out. That's
Yeah,
all.
then they dipped out, but they probably learned a thing or two and all that, and like it might have informed this design. It really could have. It was just like, oh, okay, this is an engaging mechanic. Let's do it in a way that has fuck all to do with real world money. You paid $60 for the game. You're good. You got it. But it's arguably like playing with the same tension, the same dynamic of like time versus money. And I don't know, maybe that's a good thing for kids to fuck around with, actually.
Mhm.
Very quickly, like I learned about loans from SimCity because I discovered that there was a magic button that you press to get money. And then like 5 to 10 years into
Oh,
5 to 10 years into my
that's
city,
how real
I
real
was
world works.
5 to 10 years into my city, I was bleeding money, and I was like, I don't understand why this is happening. And then I looked at the balance sheet, and it was just like, oh, that's the button that I pressed
The
before.
the the, the
Oh,
press get money button. That
yeah,
that
exactly. And
no.
that is how I learned what a fucking loan was by playing like SimCity 2000 or some shit. No, it must have been like SimCity 95 or I don't know, whatever it was.
Oh
But
wow.
but like all of which to say like I joke that that game did a better job of explaining like financial concepts than anything in school ever did.
Mhm.
But it's actually true. And maybe this game, again for kids will perform a similar thing. I don't know. I really don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. That would be an interesting, fun like side podcast for us to have. What
Mm,
real world skills or information did a game convey to you? And you're like,
yeah.
oh, so that's how that works. And you're just like, it's sort of like, your simultaneously story and your lone story of like, is there a game that you can think of that like you learned a very real thing that you applied to life through gaming? And you're like, oh, okay. I mean, there's
Uh,
one general thing, not to go off on a crazy tangent, but
yeah.
driving. Like I definitely used to the concept, huh? Oh, robot. I can hear you now.
All right, go ahead and keep talking. I'm having technical crap, but go ahead.
Okay. So the thing about driving is that I know that driving helps out. Driving games can't teach you the rules of the road, but you sort of get this sort of feel of like what it feels to be in control of like a moving object. So I always say like to people like I'm so afraid to drive. It's like, oh, play Mario Kart. Like it I think it will teach you about general like, spatial awareness of like being something and controlling something. No, you're not going to be an indie driver racer, be a maverick on the road, but you won't be as terrified to actually sit in a car and be like, okay, so yeah.
Yeah, that
But
makes sense.
cool. Yeah, I think you're okay. Say la la la. Hi,
What?
Horizon.
You hear me?
No, yeah, 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 you're good. There definitely is a change in the
Yeah, it's because it's using my webcam mic now, and this is doing nothing, and I'm trying to fix it. But let's not worry about that.
uh okay, cool.
I'm essentially done talking about Paper Mario. So
Yeah, yeah, me too. I think you can tell from both our enthusiasm how we're just like, we kind of played the game. We're struggling through it a bit, but yeah, I think I'm good too. I think I'm good too. Um,
cool.
so I don't know if there any other thing quickly want to get through, mention, or is that it for today? Actually, we can mention something real quick. When we first started the podcast, because we are based in New York, Play NYC was here. So because of coronavirus, Play NYC is a all free. I can't hear you. All free and all digital. So next week, starting tomorrow, they're going to be, releasing games and maybe demos and things on a digital platform. So that's definitely something that we could bring to you guys next week or in a special episode. I think just what they've been showing for Play NYC. Uh, but yeah, but because Zahavi is no longer with us, God rest his soul. No, I think he just had an audio failure. That might be it for us today. So we're gonna wrap it up, and you can always find us on Twitter and Instagram. We've been updating regularly, and we will see you guys on the next episode with more Zavi that you can hear. Later.
And we're back. We had some lovely technical difficulties because my headphones are rebelling against me. They do not like their master. Uh, but I think we were basically done with our thoughts on Paper Mario.
Yeah.
I think I will also want to play it some more just when I'm in like the right headspace for it, because
Yep.
this conversation kind of makes me like go like, okay, maybe I can appreciate the game just thinking of it critically in terms of like what it might do for kids and who I might recommend it to. Who the hell knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll
Definitely.
see. We'll see.
Definitely. All right. So before we wanted to go, I had just mentioned that we are based in New York, and more than a couple of years ago, Play NYC was incepted here, and they are continuing this year via digital platform. So we both signed up. It's actually free this year, and they will be releasing game trailers and probably demos over their platform. So that's definitely something that we can bring to you guys,
Yeah,
maybe in a special
boy.
episode or next week. But we're gonna try and get Steve and Stacy and any other peoples that want to join in and maybe, tag in, talk about any games that stick out to them, anything that they're interested in, or, any talks, or maybe they'll even have panels. I'm not even sure yet, but I can see them doing Zoom panels. It'll
Yeah.
probably be even better. They'll have a bigger audience, to
Hmm.
open up all that information to. So,
For sure.
yep. So
Hopefully
that's
we
it.
we get to get some good stuff out of that. And I'd be surprised if it wasn't the sort of thing that they wouldn't just like throw all the content up online afterwards anyway.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
this is small indie shit, and like they
Yeah.
ultimately just want to get everyone to get all the advertising and all that.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, but
Yeah.
hopefully we won't be it won't be some exclusive thing. People will be able to see what we're talking about and all that
Yeah, yeah,
jazz.
yeah. I mean, it's interesting too. Just COVID-19 has just changed the world so dramatically. I can't, when we come out of quarantine, eventually soon, whenever,
Mm.
I can't see them ending that digital framework or presence. I just feel like
Yeah.
if there's
a
a
lot of
live, they
people
streaming now. Like, what's the point? And
a
then
lot
it
of
just
people in
like
organizations that were like in person had to figure out how to do it remotely, and there's not a particularly great reason to like not do that anymore.
yeah,
Like I'm a DSA member. I've been to a whole bunch of meetings, and strictly for accessibility reasons, I think that like those meetings ought to be recorded and made available to like people who can't go upstairs because it's
yeah,
on the third floor of a building. And like now they're doing their stuff like virtually, and I hope that they continue doing that when we're out of all of this, because like
yeah,
duh. And that goes for gaming conferences and other kind of conferences where it's just
yeah.
like, why keep this information to yourself when you
Yeah,
have it recorded?
set up a streaming camera, set up a Zoom link, you sign in, that's it. Everybody gets to go from, their home. I do understand there's a certain intention and
You got to respect people's privacy, that's for damn sure.
oh yeah, no, I meant deliberacy about doing things and going to things, being
Mm.
there in person.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a huge
Yeah,
value to it, and
yeah,
that's the thing. Is like I'm a developer for Apple platforms, and they've had their worldwide developer comps forever, and it's been stupidly expensive for like the last decade because iPhone blowing up. But like
yeah,
they put all of their educational stuff online. The value is going there in person and being able to talk to Apple people. You know,
yeah,
same thing will hopefully be true for all of these sorts of events moving forward. Is like it was really cool all those years ago when we met these people. So
yeah, yeah.
that there's still value in that, and but hopefully all the content gets thrown online.
Cool. Well, this is what we wanted to say, and then some, if you didn't hear it. But I think
Extra credits.
extra credits. But I definitely think that's where we're going to wrap up today's episode. So you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Party Chat Peoples or Party Chat PCP or PCP Party Chat Peoples. Actually, no, it's just Party Chat Peoples and Party Chat Peoples PCP. And we will see you guys on the next episode. Later.
Bye.